Well, if you're still listening, you're a real fan. Strap in. Hello everybody, Further North is back. I'm here alone. We had a couple of little technical issues. I did get Rashaan on the podcast from Closer to a Flag. We had some audio issues, so I've had to do this again. It'll be the second time I'm doing a review of this game, and with how bad the game played out, geez, I'm committed, right? Anyway, hopefully it's very old school pod. I think pre-Marnie days, which seems like forever ago. Not days I want to go back to, that's for sure. But here we are, and it's just me going to walk you through the game very, very casually. Look, it was a tough day. I'm going to do my best to make everyone feel better. You know what I mean? We're really limping to the end of the season here. There's lots to chat about. We're not going to talk about the game for like a full hour or anything like that. I'm going to try and make this one a little bit quicker because you don't want to sit there and listen to me talk about us getting absolutely slaughtered for an hour. There's some other North Melbourne news going on, which was before the game and around the game, which we will talk about as well, which is going to be very exciting. But I guess we do talk about the game quickly and briefly. So 138-42, North Melbourne lost to the Western Bulldogs at Marvel Stadium. It was an absolute nightmare. The first quarter sort of seemed a little bit positive, 22-33, and then it all went downhill from there, basically. So in the end, we only kicked 1 point in the second quarter. We kicked 1 goal in the third, and then we got a couple of consolation goals at the end. An incredibly dogged day, and that really felt like pre-bye North Melbourne, but like our absolute worst version of that. It's really interesting because let's touch on the first quarter. I actually thought we sort of started okay. Not blistering by any means, but you know, we were winning clearance okay. McKercher's run off half back was really nice, and we looked like we were up for the fight. The problem was the Bulldogs were staying in the game without really playing amazing, and obviously they switched it on after quarter time. But yeah, it was okay, and we sort of held our own early, winning some clearance. Like I said, McKercher's run off half back was very interesting, and obviously with the selection through the week, Sheasel not being there, I was worried. We came in that first and I was like, maybe we can put up a fight without someone of Sheasel's quality. Turns out that's not true at all. So from then on, it was basically downhill. We had some very scary moments in the first quarter with a couple of injury scares. Now, Charlie Comben, let's talk about Charlie Comben. He's been under an injury cloud the last couple of weeks, right? I did say if he can get through, I think he should play the Tiger and the Eagles game. Why he's still playing if those injuries are serious, no idea now. I understand a lot of people's thoughts were, you know, rest him and don't risk him even if it is a winnable game against the Eagles, which obviously didn't go our way. But I personally thought he should have got through. But I was incredibly shocked to see him still in the team when it got announced for this Bulldogs game. I never thought we were a real chance in this game. If you listened to the preview pod, you would have heard my tip. But Charlie Comben gets absolutely hammered, going back with the flight incredibly bravely. It was a bit scary to see how his neck snapped back, but here we are. Went to hospital with a concussion. Very scary stuff. Don't see many people go to hospital with concussion. They did say on the broadcast that it's precautionary, but it'd have to be a pretty severe concussion if you go to hospital, even if it's a precautionary reason. I don't see many guys go to hospital. So haven't heard much after the game. I'm hoping he's okay, and I'm sure he's in good spirits. You know, he got up and walked off on his own accord, which is really, really good to see, and really massive credit to him with that. But obviously he's done for the season now. But, you know, I think because it wasn't a groin injury, we're going to give, the selection a little bit of a pass. But, you know, down Charlie Comben, very, very bad because their defence looked pretty bad. Nick Larkey also Looked like he did his knee. Now, did I think that he was fully on the ground, rolling around, oh my God, and something really bad's happened to him? No, he seemed sort of okay enough. But there was some split-second thoughts that went through my mind of, oh my God, is Nick Larkey, is his ACL exploded? Are we going to be without our only forward that really kicks goals for a whole year? I was honestly terrified, and this game was going downhill incredibly quickly at a point where, we're still kind of competitive in the game. So, yeah, it was very, very scary. Nick Larkey did come back on and played the rest of the game. Didn't do very much at all, but played the rest of the game, so that's okay. He seems okay, but do we risk him next week? No idea. It's interesting. What did we score in this game? Like 30-something points? 42. So if we don't have Nick Larkey next week, what's the lowest score in AFL history? It's probably like 7 or something. We're not going to do that. But look, it's going to be a tough day at the office. Let's just say that. The other injury through the game, and this was a little bit later on, obviously, we subbed on Miller Bergman for Charlie Comben. And he was on for all of 5 minutes, it felt like, before he got concussed, and off he went. Bit dazed, bit confused. Poor Miller Bergman, man. I really like Miller Bergman. I think he's a really good user of the ball. I think he's a smart decision maker. He just needs game time to put on a little bit more size, and I think he can be a really good defender. I really like his skill set, but obviously his shoulder injury in his first ever game last season didn't get heaps of continuity as well. I think he hurt his ankle when he played his first game this season and then was out. And now his first game back again, he's got concussed. So, yeah, my brain just went to there's a little bit of Ed Vickers-Willis about this. Shout out Ed Vickers-Willis as well. But no, look, I'm sure he'll be okay, and I'm sure he will do what he needs to do and come back, and next season he'll be ready to go. But yeah, a rubbish day with injuries for us, especially when you've got guys like Logue out and important pieces that weren't there. But hey, we soldiered on, and soldier on we did, on to an absolute belting by the Bulldogs. Second quarter, it just got out of hand. Third quarter, an absolute rubbish time of it. And then it tailed off in the fourth. We kicked a couple of consolation goals, but, it really wasn't anything to, I was going to say write home about, but hey, that's just stating the obvious. A couple of things, I guess, that we'll talk about with the game is how, maybe we'll talk about this when we talk about individual players, but I'll mention it now. Our midfield got absolutely dominated, and our forward line and entry into the forward line, I know I talk about it every week, but it is so far and away the worst entry into the 50 in the AFL. I don't understand what they're trying to do. Let's have a look at some of the stats from the game. And the stats sort of show that the Bulldogs really took our kick mark game away. That's since the bye, we've been really, really good at sort of maintaining more possession, getting everyone involved, transitioning the ball, but just more stability and not having turnovers when we're running and gunning and it goes back against us. This game, that went out the window. The Bulldogs absolutely took that away. So I'll point out some of the stats. I mean, the disposals, who cares, and kicks and handballs, whatever. Inside 50s, 69-34. That is an absolute shellacking. 34 entries into the 50 when our average this season is 45. Like, that is insane. 69 for the Dogs when their average is 56 for the year. If that doesn't say everything you need to know, I don't know what does. Disposal efficiency, felt like we went at about 10% disposal efficiency, but apparently it was 73 and the Dogs was 78. So look, we actually had our just under our average disposal efficiency for 2024. Think about that. Think about that. You know what's crazy as well with these stats? And I know there's so much context here. The Bulldogs, it says here, the Bulldogs' average efficiency for 2024 is 73.8, and ours is 74.8. So we're a percent better disposal efficiency. That cannot be real. Here's the one that hurts out of many of these, by the way. Efficiency inside 50, 32% when our average this year is 42. 58 for the Dogs when their average is 51. Now, 51% average for the year is so high. I don't feel like we'll ever get to those heights, but that just shows how poor the midfield is at kicking the ball into our 50. And when it goes into our 50, our inability to maintain it in there or score. You know what I mean? 15 to 21 free kicks for the day. I mean, look, we were outclassed and I guess we made clumsier mistakes. Here's some interesting stats about the stoppages. So hit-outs. We absolutely dominated the hit-outs. 48 to 19. 19 hit-outs in an entire game of football is laughable. But you look at the clearance, 40 clearances to the Dogs and 31 to North. Crazy that you can have 48 hit-outs and only 31 clearances when the opposition had 19 hit-outs and 40 clearances. Now, it's a midfield thing and a ruckman thing, and we'll talk about that a little bit more when we go to individual players, but the stats are alarming. 17 to 8 centre clearances, 23 stoppage clearances. So around the ground, we didn't get beaten, but the centre clearances, the amount of goals that they kicked from centre clearances is disgusting. Like, we would have possession and either obviously turn it over, and it was just misplaced kicks. There was one where Tristan Sherry had the ball sort of near the wing, just went to kick it back to Jackson Archer, and he completely missed him. Jackson fumbles the ball, and the Dogs maintain possession, and they kick a goal from it. These are schoolboy errors. I think there was a Jai Simpkins switch into the middle that was kicking it to basically a 2-on-1. Our decision-making was the poorest thing yesterday besides the skill execution. So, I don't know, guys. This was David Noble era football. Possession, look, who cares really? We had 64 turnovers to their 49. They dominated as an uncontested possession. Contested possession was pretty even. But we only had 36% of the possession for the entire game, which, is just shows how much the Bulldogs sort of dominated on the ball. Now, this is the one that really gets me. And this shows how much the Bulldogs took away our game. 77 marks to 129 we lost, which is just an astronomical stat and a differential. They controlled absolutely everything. 9 to 8 contested marks, even though that didn't feel like that. But the marks inside 50, 18 to 6. That's at least 18 scoring shots from marks. You know what I mean? It's just crazy. They completely took away our game. I mean, I think it's maybe their midfield's ability to rove Sherry's taps, or as much as Tristan has improved this year astronomically, and I know I've had my opinions on him in the past, and he's completely changed every single one of those, and I'm so happy he has. The one thing that I wanted from him maybe at the start of the year, or even when he started to get good and show that his form was picking up, is impact around the ground. He's done that. He took some really good contested marks, kicked a goal. He's completed that now. Now, the next thing for Tristan Sherry, with all my ruck coaching experience apparently, is he dominates hit-outs every single week. But hit-outs to advantage is not a stat in his favour. And I know that's not a great stat because how much can you really control that when there's another 2-metre bloke jumping at you as well? But, you look at the clearance stats with that many hit-outs, like 48 to 19 hit-outs, and we lost clearances 40 to 31. So it's a part on him. It's a part on our midfield as well, either not defending the opposition midfield and letting them rove off Sherry, or we're not tapping it to our players and to their advantage, and we don't have that midfield scheme worked out correctly. So that was very, very concerning. But those marking stats definitely show how they took away our game completely. When we play well, we mark the ball more than the opposition. That's been a very, very common trend. 20 goals, 18 is an insane amount of score. And I really think I blame is a harsh word, but you guys know what I mean. The midfield for that. The quickness with how the Bulldogs got out of the midfield, it was like 2 kicks and it'd be a mark in their 50. I think it was the third quarter when they had 3 centre bounces in a row that they won the clearance cleanly. We didn't lay a glove on them, kicked it directly into the 50, and it was a contested mark to them. If it was Darcy, if it was Hugo Hagan, if it was Norton, it doesn't matter. Sean Darcy also kicked more points than their entire team on the day, which makes me sad. Makes me incredibly sad. And that just shows how bad of a day it was. 12 to 2 tackles inside 50. We laid 2 tackles inside 50. That is rubbish. Absolute rubbish. Especially when Curtis has been playing decently. Zerha didn't really get himself in the game at all, but you can at least contribute with tackling. I don't need Robert Hansen to tackle. I mean, I'd like him to, but he's going to get dragged along like he's attached to the back of a car. So, some of these stats are really showing maybe how dogged the day was for us. No pun intended there, of course. I need to look up the definition of a 1%er personally. I know what the 1%er means, but not the actual AFL definition. But for 45 to 31 of those, which just shows even if they had the ball, we've got, I say 1%ers are like smothers or pressure acts or something like that. And if we don't have the ball, how can we do that? I mean, we lost the tackle count, 63 to 49, like I said. We barely had the ball. So we should have got more tackles. How did they out-tackle us and we only had 36% of the ball? So terrible times. Terrible times. Sean Darcy had his breakout game. I mean, it's hard to have a breakout game against a side as bad as North Melbourne. I almost thought at one point he was going to take his mask off and Josh Bruce would be under there because it was very reminiscent of that. I mean, the commentators were absolutely loving it. But hey, we got absolutely embarrassed. Let's look at some player stats and let's go through the different lines of the team. So, okay, am I gonna enjoy doing this? Probably not. Let's look at the defense first. The defense is interesting because we had Zach Fisher come in, we had Callan Dawson come in, Toby Pink go out. I know Toby Pink plays more forward, but he did play in defense briefly. Our defense, it's interesting because I look at some of these and I don't think anyone had a rubbish game, maybe except for Callan Dawson. I don't think anyone had a rubbish game, but there was a lot of passengers, like a stack of passengers. Charlie Comben, before the injury, obviously, dropping a mark, like a chest mark that he should have taken and making a few mistakes, leading to 2 goals in the first quarter. He's new to the back line, and we know Chom's my favourite. He's the favourite on the podcast here, and I believe in this guy so much. I think he'll be All-Australian one day, but, there was a stat going around that he's lost the most one-on-one duels as a key defender in the AFL this season. And I think he'll come back next year and rectify that. I fully believe, in his ability because you can see his hunger. He wants to be there. And he wants to get better. But look, it wasn't the best game for Chom. And then obviously the concussion coming after his couple of turnovers that led to goals, a really dogged day for him. So I hope he's recovering well and we can see him in preseason and next year because he's not playing next week. Aiden Core played on Jamara most of the day, as far as I know. Jamara sort of had a patch second or third, late second, early third quarter where he kicked 3 goals. Other than that, was it 3? Let me just double check that. I'm pretty sure he kicked 3. Yes, he did. Other than that, he was pretty quiet, to be honest. And I think 3 goals when the opposition kicks, 20. Do I want to say he was held well? No, obviously I can't say that. I think Aiden Core did everything he could have done in that scenario because of how bad we were playing and how quickly we were entering into the 50. So I think Aiden Core did what he could do, but still not good enough, but the entire backline was not. Let's talk about Callan Dawson as the other key defender. He got absolutely roasted by Sean Darcy, and at what point do you make a change? At what point does Clarkson go, Dawson's getting absolutely manhandled by Darcy. He's nowhere near what he's capable of. What do we do? When do we make a change? And I understand Dawson is young in his football career, maybe not age, but in his footballing career, he hasn't played 50 games, as we know. So nowhere near. So do you keep Callan Dawson on as a learning experience, or do you keep letting the carnage happen? I think when it gets to a certain point and your opponent's kicked maybe 5, it's probably time to make a change. You know what I mean? Callan Dawson was shocking and probably the worst on the park yesterday. I think he's had a good year. I'm pretty sure he signed a 1-year extension, didn't he? Unless I'm wrong there, but I'm pretty sure he did. I like him, but I think Core, Comben and Logue, talking about his mate, are probably our 3 keys down there. And if in an ideal world, Dawson probably doesn't make it in, I guess and we'll talk about some rumours after we review the game, but we're going after some experienced key defenders apparently, and then you look at a different problem. But bringing Callum Dawson in, I really like what he's done, but his Swans game was really bad and this game was really bad. So I don't know if he's tired. He hasn't played this many games ever in the AFL. So look, not trying to make excuses. Realistically, rubbish day for him and not his best game. Look, Coleman's going to be out. I hope he keeps his place and they give him another shot because I don't know. I think he's done enough over the season to warrant, selection. Jackson Archer, he was fine. I mean, once again, felt like a bit of a passenger, but everyone kind of was. Luke McDonald didn't feel like he made heaps of mistakes, but sort of was just there like everybody else. The only one in the back line I can say that wasn't just a passenger or bad was Colby McKercher. I think he provided a lot of run. I think 30-odd touches again, 31 maybe. A lot of rebound 50s and is really a spark down there. So that's sort of, that's the only positive I can draw from this back line. I guess when you have so many tall forwards, in the Dogs forward line and you take your main 200 centimetre intercepting defender out of there and you've really only got two one-on-one defenders like Core and Dawson, there's always going to be a spare tall. Archer was playing on Norton a lot as well, and he sort of was switching. From what I could see on the broadcast, he was going sort of between Waitman and Norton. I don't know who was going to pick up, Norton if Jackson went to Waitman, but hey, that's their job to figure out, right? So look, I think Jackson did what he once again could do, but not quite good enough. Backline as a unit, nowhere near good enough. Too many contested marks. When the ball hit the ground, we looked sloppy and we had no idea what to do. And when we were exiting that 50, it was the last few years of it's very pre-buy where we just hoofed that thing as far as we can go. And the amount of intercept marks that the Bulldogs took was ridiculous. Like, honestly, just insane. I hadn't really heard of this guy before, but he gave us a bath. Joel Frazier, 13 marks here. And look, it doesn't tell me how many intercept marks it was. Probably all 13 of them were intercept marks. So that you can just see the difference in what an intercepting marking defender can be and how much better the Dogs' backline looked than ours, right? So, yeah, a bit of an alarming stat, personally. Now, let's have a look at the midfield. I don't think there's much more to talk about with the defenders, to be honest. I mean, we're not going to rank Miller Bergman at all. I mean, Zach Fisher. Let's talk about Zach Fisher before we go to the mids. He got 33 touches, I'm pretty sure, which was our most on the ground. 31, sorry. Where did I get McKercher stat from? No, sorry. LDU had 30. McKercher only had 24. My mistake. Zach Fisher got 31. And it's a hard one because I think he got 7 turnovers as far as I can remember. I think it was 7. I'm not sure how to feel about Zach Fisher. I like Zach Fisher and I think he deserves a space in this team and I think he's proven that over the year. But the contrasting opinion from some of the fans is so different to mine. I understand he's a bit of a turnover merchant, but I guess my opinion on it, I would rather a player that turns the ball over because he's trying. He's getting around the ball, 31 touches, and turning it over when he's trying to use it than a bunch of passengers like we had yesterday. Who else are we sort of looking at? Like Darcy Tucker, as an example, is another guy sort of off that back line. What did he end up with? Like 13 or something like that? Let me see if I can find that here. But I'm pretty sure he only ended up with something like 13, yeah. And I don't know. Did he have as many turnovers? No, but he's a passenger. He's not even trying. And I think with where we're at on the ladder at the moment, I would rather Zach Fisher have some turnovers while he's getting 30 touches and trying to drive us forward because he's good, he's really good, but his negative can be bad. Other than a guy like Darcy Tucker who jogged around the field yesterday, got 13 touches and made no real impact on the game. Do you guys know what I'm saying with that? I think Fisher gets scrutinised more because he's more noticeable because he gets around the ball and he's barely ever a passenger. I think that's one thing you can say with Fisher this year. He's never really been a passenger. So anyway, that's my sort of opinion on Fisher. Glad to see him back, and I still think he's going to be a really good player for us long term. Okay, midfield time. This was another LDU game that was very quiet, even though the numbers suggest that he did okay. 30 touches, 8 marks, 4 tackles, 6 clearances, but no real impact. And he was trying again. I'm not saying he was a passenger at all. I mean, 30 touches at the end of the day is good. It's the entry into the 50. And I'm not going to bang on about this every single week because it's like a broken record and you guys don't want to listen to that. But when he does, like he won a couple of clearances in the second half that I was like, okay, we're finally winning clearances. It's been so long since we won clearance. Then just bombing it to Larky's head, who's already under an injury cloud. I really want him to find a way to put accurate kicking into his game. Obviously, with Sheasel not being there, and McKercher, I guess, being our better user. McKercher nearly kicked a miracle goal as well. Let's mention that. Dodged around a couple of players and provided a lot of run, just missed. But I'd love LDU to be better by foot with his disposal. I think if he can do that, you're talking about one of the best mids in the game. I think that's why he's maybe, is he A grade? On his day, he's A grade. But if he can't fix that kicking, he's a half a tier below that. Okay? Who else played in the midfield? Jai Simpkin, 22 touches. Look, I really like Jai Simpkin, and I don't want to come on here and bash him at all. I think his endeavour for the contest is so good, and I think he tries so hard for this team, and I do think he's a good leader for the club. But I think he got about 7 turnovers as well, and some of the decision making to a great. Hang on, we'll talk about that, but. The decision-making from our captain needs to be better. Doesn't mean his leadership isn't good, but you've also got to lead by example. And maybe that's the thing that Simpkin can sometimes lack unless he's crashing into a pack and laying a tackle. Or like the whole day, he was throwing himself on top of the ball and, tackling and chasing. I'm not questioning his effort at all, but it's the disposal and how many turnovers he gets every game. Some of the decisions to, get the ball switched into the middle and it gets turned over, just not hitting kicks accurately. It was very, very, very frustrating. Tom Powell, sort of halfback midfield again, 20 touches, 7 tackles. So I think his pressure was good, but once again, didn't really make a massive impact on the game. And I think this is what we're really lacking. Let's go to George Wardlaw. I love George Wardlaw. 16 touches. 16 touches. And I know he's coming back from a couple of weeks out, but, he's barely had concussion symptoms. It's only protocol keeping him out. I'm sure he's training, fairly regularly. I just would have thought maybe, you'd be a bit more hungry to come out and really make an impact. And he doesn't have time to warm up into his form. He hit this little patch of form for 2 or 3 games in the middle of the year where we were like, wow, George Wardlaw has arrived. And he's regressed back from that into, mid-teens sort of touches. And that's not what I want. George needs to be getting 20 to 25 a week. And once he does that, he's going to be a fantastic player. But once again, he's falling back into that a little bit anonymous. It's not him individually. When the team can't supply him, when we're not giving him best use of the ball, when there's not support around him, which is something from every player, it's hard. But our whole team was not firing. Liam Shields, I guess, sort of played wing. Once again, another passenger, sort of 14 touches, not really doing very much. And just the midfield as a whole, Bailey Scott, 26 touches. I thought Bailey Scott was all right. Once again, runs all day and really tries his guts out. But, did it come to much? Not really. I can't falter his effort and his endeavour and his run. And, he did break lines for us every now and then. But if the team isn't presenting around you, what can he do? Bailey Scott's not going to be the guy to, do it on his own. You know what I mean? Dylan Stevens, I defend this guy all the time. And I think this game, I don't think when he got the ball, he did anything wrong. I think he's got pretty clean disposal. But he's soft and barely any touches again. He's just another part of that team that didn't really get many touches. But if we're pointing people out individually, where were you, mate? 11 touches. Look at some of these names. What are we going to go for? Let's go under 20 touches. And I know that maybe is slightly unfair. You've got Wardlaw 16, Shields 14, Tucker 13, Dylan Stevens 11, Eddie Ford 10. Jackson Archer, 10. Paul Curtis, 7. You know, other guys at key position and they don't really get as many touches. I mean, Bryn Tinkle had 4 touches. Is Bryn Tinkle like Tristan Sherry? When he didn't have the helmet, he wasn't good at all. And since he put that helmet on, he's the best ruckman in the league. Is Bryn Tinkle rubbish without the mullet? Because he buzzed his hair. Grow it back, Bryn. Grow it back. Anyway, so many passengers through that midfield. Okay, what we might do, because I'm getting angry. What we're going to do is we're going to go to some voice messages. We've got a very special voice message in there as well. So I'm going to go to some voice messages. Enjoy these. Thank you for contributing again, everybody. We're trying to keep the language slightly cleaner. We've had some feedback about bad language. An F-bomb every now and then is okay, I guess, but I might be bleeping them, and please don't swear all the way through. I've been made aware that children also listen to this podcast, and that's not fun for them to hear. So please continue with the energy in the voice messages. Every weekly contributor, I always look forward to seeing your name pop up in the inbox. But there are kids listening to this, so we're going to try and keep it more clean. Please remember that going forward, because if I have to beep or cut out the swearing, that's more work for me. And I don't want to do that, guys. Please, just do it for me. Anyway, enjoy the voice messages. Remember, furthernorthpod@gmail.com every week. We love getting your contribution. It really makes the podcast something special. Enjoy them, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
The other players didn't play. Just run around and get the ball, because I think it would only make them better if Harry Sheezel was there. That's why they didn't play it properly. It was so good.
What was so good?
My best part was Money giving me a Aiden Core number 4 badge.
Hey Josh, hey Marnie, Jen here. Well, that was just sad and depressing watching that today. As soon as Chom went down, it all went to shit. And during the off-season, we definitely need to work on our foot skills, that's for sure.
Who's ready for the start of the girls' premiership season? Done with this one. On to Flag-Roos 2024. The real stuff begins. 2 weeks. Carnaroo girls.
Hey everyone, Mars here checking in from Melbourne Domestic Airport. I've come straight from Marvel Stadium to catch a flight to Sydney. That's how badly I have to escape the state after what we saw this afternoon. All I can say is Jai Simpkins' mark is the band-aid for all the wounds and all the pain I experienced for the majority of the afternoon. Anyway, time to gather ourselves up one last time. Looking forward to a mega round 24 clash in Launceston next week. Go North.
Today would have been a good day to have food poisoning instead of going to fucking Marvel.
Can someone please explain to me why they keep kicking it to Hanson Jr., expecting him to mark it one-on-one? You don't see the Bulldogs doing that with Caleb Daniels. Hey, Josh, did you know North have not won this year when Toby Pink isn't playing?
Okay, the voice messages have cheered me up. Shout out to Devon. Unfortunately, I couldn't get to the game. Luckily, I couldn't get to the game. But Marnie did hook Devon up with an Aiden Core badge. Devon and his parents were the winners of the Aiden Core Candy Shop Photoshop Challenge, and they won. Devon got his badge for one of his favourite players, Aiden Core. Well done to Marnie for sorting that out. Well done to Devon for winning that. And have you ever heard such a young fella with such football knowledge? He's totally right. They did just run around and get the ball and do nothing else. We do need Harry Sheezel there. But look, I hope, Devon, you had an okay day. Trust me, mate, North Melbourne will get there. Stay strong. We're going to get there together. So fantastic stuff. I look forward every week. If we can get a weekly Devon update on the games, or every now and then, that's going to be a podcast highlight for sure. So Devon, if you're listening, if you'd like to let us know or send in a voice message to a lot of our games next season, mate, we'd be very, very excited to hear from you. Thank you to everyone else who contributed as well. Look, I feel bad if I'm going through and not naming everybody. Jennifer, Nicholas, like the Marnie sent one in. That was really, really nice. Everyone who regularly contributes, you know what I mean? It's fantastic stuff. No Jared from Tassie this week. He's off overseas. Good time to bail as well. Hope you're doing well over there. Everybody, look, I'm going to miss people. I apologise. But thank you to everyone who is a weekly contributor on the voice messages. Something we've started this year. I've really, really loved it. And it's a nice break in the podcast. And it's just good to get your sort of thoughts. You know, I'm an Arsenal fan. I'm an Arsenal fan TV guy. Can I be bothered filming outside the ground for hours after? Maybe we'll try that next year if we win. So maybe do it once. But look, this is our way of doing that and getting your voice heard. So thank you very much, guys. Okay, forward line. Let's have a chat about how rubbish our forward line was. Brintika, we've sort of talked about. I didn't talk about Tristan Jerry. You know what? I'll do it after the forward line. Okay, Brintika we didn't talk about, or we talked about a little bit. So I didn't really get around the ball. Paul Curtis as well didn't really get around the ball. Cam Zerha didn't really get around the ball. There was so much dysfunction. Eddie Ford as well. The amount of passengers in that forward line is concerning. Very, very concerning. Let's talk about Cam Zerha a little bit. So since his 5-year deal, he hasn't been anywhere near a game, has he? And what's the Cam Zerha game this year? And 1 a year still isn't good enough, especially when you're that talented a player. We've given this guy a 5-year deal. And I guess the fans' main worry from the 5-year deal was, can you step up to do more? He's said himself in press conferences that he needs to do more. He's got and Marnie said it too, he owes the club as much as we owe him. He's got to prove to us as much as we've got to prove to him. And he's not really done that so far. I still believe in Cam, and I really love that he stayed. He's with his mates, and I think he can be a really good player. We know what he can do in his day, but maybe bar the Melbourne game when he sort of dragged us back, there hasn't really been a game, has there? He's contributed, but yeah, a little bit lackluster for me. Paul Curtis, very hot and cold. Last week, very good. This week, very, very cold. Eddie Ford didn't really get around the ball. The only real highlight to talk about in this forward line was Robert Hansen Jr. And once again, not an incredible game for Robert Hansen Jr., but I guess you've got to praise the guy when he was our highest goal scorer with 2. 12 touches, 2 goals. You know, he kicked. It was a nice finish on the run. Sort of running about 40 metres out. I think it was a chain handball. I think Paul Curtis put the bump on to Shields to Hansen Jr. and then he finished, which was nice. Another opportunistic goal near the goal square as well. Look, does he have a spot in this team going forward? I don't know, but I think he's earning selection. 1, because we have no one else to play that role. 2, because we're bad. But 3, he's improved a lot in the VFL this year, and I think he's earning an opportunity. Is that a massive opportunity? Don't know. I'd say he gets another year to play VFL and try and break into this team more. But look, that was probably the best game we've seen him play, to be honest, and he definitely deserves his spot next week. So, look, it's a good job, Robert Hansen Jr. I mean, you look at who kicked our goals. The only forwards that kicked goals were Robert Hansen and Nick Lucky. Other than that, Bailey Scott, George Wardlaw, Tristan Sherry were our only goal scorers, which I think says a lot for the day. You look at people for us who laid tackles, and I'm just going to filter these stats a little bit more because we only got 2 tackles inside the 50. So let's read out some names that had no tackles. I mean, Robert Hansen, no tackles. Eddie Ford, 1 tackle. Larkey, 1 tackle. Teakle, 1 tackle. Curtis, 2 tackles. Zerha got 2 tackles. You know, and we go on and on like that. Powell and Sherry are probably the only 2 that can hold their heads up. I mean, it was a quiet day for tackles for Sherry with 6, 7 from Tom Powell. Other than that, pretty pathetic, to be honest, especially when they had that much of the ball. I mean, you look at it, Aiden Core, no tackles. Dawson, no tackles. I mean, John 1 tackle. We didn't play much. So I'm not going to worry about that. Like Luke McDonald, 1 tackle. Yeah, Dylan Stevens, 1 tackle. You know, Zach Fisher, 2 tackles. It's everybody across the board. Colby, let's call out someone we love. Colby, 2 tackles. You know, Bailey Scott, 2. Shields. It's Jackson Archer, 3. I mean, 3 is good for this game. You know what I mean? Like, what are we doing as a team? And with that little inside 50s and the amount of rubbish disposal, 1, I feel sorry for the forwards because what can they do? What can they honestly do to do anything about this team? But players like Zerha and Curtis, and we've seen Ford, they're moments players. they'll step up for a quarter and just win a game off their boot or turn the game into our favour a little bit, and they were just nowhere near it the last game. I honestly don't have much to talk about with this forward line. We kicked 6 goals, 6. 2 of our forwards kicked goals, and it was such a lackluster performance. I didn't think for a second that we could hold that ball in our forward line. And I really wonder what went on. I haven't actually got to watch Clarkson's press conference yet, so I'd like to see what he said, but I'm sure it'll be very generic, sort of stuff. Joel Freya, we talked about before how many intercept marks. Taylor DeRay, the amount of marks these players took was insane, just to absolutely take the piss from us. I mean, those two combined had 24 marks. James O'Donnell, 9 marks. I mean, Sam Darcy, 9 marks, 7 goals, 1. Bailey Dale, 8 marks. Like Bailey Williams, 7 marks. This is different levels. It's just not good enough. And I wonder why we've slipped. The West Coast game last week, why did that happen? We had a 5-minute, 10-minute, 5-minute lapse, and it just went to absolute rubbish. This game was the whole thing. We played 3 decent enough quarters against West Coast. I know that people thought it was a bad game against Richmond, but we got the job done. We didn't play this badly. I know the Bulldogs are a rubbish matchup for us, and historically they've absolutely torched us with everything. But, man, 42 points was so lucky with those last few consolation goals. Like, we had about 30 points for most of the game, 35 points it felt like. So, look, the forwards, and we know the forward line is an area of concern. It's funny, at the start of the year we went in with the defence being the thing we're really, really worried about. And it's actually the forward line that we're super, super worried about. So I really hope we can do something next week. I mean, the Hawks down in Tassie, I think we're going to get absolutely obliterated, personally. But, does Larkey play with his injury? Common's not going to play. There's going to be so many people with little things. Surely this is the time to give like a Finbar or a Geordie Payne or someone like that a game. Do I think that'll happen? No, I think they've been pretty clear that Finbar isn't going to play this year and he's not ready. Don't know why, but he's not ready. It'll be very interesting to see the team line up next week for such a nothing game for us in Tasmania. Hawks need to win. We don't have anything to play for, so whatever. And let's talk about the ruckman, Tristan Sherry. Probably best on ground for me out of a very bad bunch, but he's probably the best on the ground. My only issue with Tristan Sherry is his taps to advantage. And I don't think it was all his fault. Our midfielders have to be better at taking advantage of what he dishes up to us. And also our midfield needs to be better at defending the opposition to not rove off his taps and put some blocks on and some defensive pressure. But another really solid game. I mean, his contested marking is so much better. He's pretty accurate in front of goal as well. I really would like to see him go forward sometimes. If we had another ruckman that was semi-capable, maybe he could go down forward for half a quarter or something like that, and we could put it to the square. Maybe one day with Tristan. But, 44 hitouts for the day, and look, he just did what he had to do, didn't he? I think he absolutely beat out. I mean, they rotated a few through the ruck, but it was mainly Rory Lobb. They put Buku Karmas in there, I think, as well, and obviously Darcy went in a little bit. But, I mean, Sherry doing what he did all day. Bryn Tickler, he had 4 hitouts. So, yeah, he's really carrying this ruck thing himself, and he was the best on for us yesterday, in my opinion. Has to be All-Australian ruckman, but we'll see. But we will see. Sean Adler Club Champ. Let's talk about that. I think my votes are going to be 3 to the helmet, 2 to McKercher, and 1 to Robert Hansen Jr. Who would have thought this year that Robert Hansen Jr. would be getting Sean Adler Club Champ votes? But I think that's pretty fair. I'm just looking up here who else you can throw in. LDU, I don't think he had enough impact on the game. Zach Fisher, a lot of turnovers, but I liked his initiative, I guess, and he's still being able to get around the ball. Hopefully that made sense what I said before as well, where I'd rather someone be like Zach Fisher and get 31 touches and try but have turnovers than be like a Darcy Tucker or whoever else you want to point out in that game and be a passenger. But he's not getting a vote. Bailey Scott, Nah. Robert Hansen, sort of 2 goals. I mean, kicked the most goals for us for the game. I think maybe with him having limited opportunities, best game, he deserves a vote. McKercher provided run off half back and safety and security with the ball, and Sherry was our best on ground. So I think that's pretty fair. Golden helmet moment of the game, Jai Simpkin took a hanger, which is something I never thought I would see. I mean, at least we got a highlight out of the game. He hung up there for a long time too. He probably got a little bit more, not as high as Dersma, but he probably got a little bit more hang time than Dersma. I wish he fell over. This is my thing, and I told you guys this with the Dersma one, because Chom took a great mark against the Cats a few weeks ago, I think it was, and he didn't fall over. And I'm like, mate, fall over. That's how you get mark of the year. If you hang on someone's head for a minute and then land on your feet, it's bad. It's a bad mark. Jai, fall over next time, but a fantastic mark and some great photos. I mean, look, when his career's all said and done, you'll be putting that in a frame and chucking that on the wall, won't you? So, no, great mark. And that, I mean, there's not many to pick from for Golden Helmet moment of the game. I guess Colby's point could have maybe been one of the moments of the game where he beat like 2 or 3 guys on the run, like he does with his pace by foot, and kicked a fantastic point. But hey, it's got to be Jai Simpkin. It's got to be Jai Simpkin. All right, let's talk about some North news, and then we're going to talk about the round of footy as a whole and what that means for finals, and then we'll go. First bit of news here throughout the week, we offered Nathan Broad a 3-year deal. This is very interesting because, you know, Clarkson alluded to Charlie Comben playing forward most of the rest of the year, and that happened for 2 games, and I know Griffin Logue went down, and that's probably what's done it. But also I think Charlie Comben's best form as an AFL footballer has been in defence. And in the forward line, I'm not sure he's fully proven himself. You know, his marking ability, you know, it's really good. It's really, really good. But the times he was in the forward line, he maybe struggled to find the ball a little bit. I think his skill set can be utilised so well in the back line. So it's interesting that we're looking to bring in, you know, an experienced defender over a key forward. And I'd suggest that the plan for Chom is to then go back forward next year. Now, a 3-year deal to Nathan Broad is very, very interesting. I mean, he went on like a podcast and sort of said, look, the Tigers drafted me at 22 or picked him up at 22, sorry, and they've sort of believed in him the entire time. So, you know, I respect the loyalty. Yeah. Is this the type of player we need? A Nick Haynes, sort of a medium-sized defender, not someone that I think I'd rather like a proper big key defender. So it's interesting to see what their plan is there. But confirmed that we offered him a deal. Clarkson also went on the radio and sort of talked about, you know, we do want that experienced player. And I like that he's open about that. Like, everyone knows, but the media tries to bait you into saying, oh yeah, we're going after players, when everyone knows we're going to go after players. And then they act like, oh my God, Clarkson said it, when you wanted them to say it and you knew it was happening anyway. I think that's the right approach from Clarkson. I think be open about it and just say your intention, because everybody knows. So no one cares. No one cares. You know, I saw people in the comments of like the post of that SEN or someone did, and they're like, oh, keep your hands off other teams' players, you know, use your own. Have you ever watched AFL football? Everyone trades and poaches players. Anyway, whatever. Do I think we're going to get a player like that? I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I was surprised we got someone like a Zach Fisher last year. But I really don't know. I mean, I would rather a forward or a midfielder than a defender at that age, at that like a roughly, you know, 30 years old. So a Viney would be perfect, but I just think he's too good, too loyal. I don't think that's happening. I could see like a Luke Parker, definitely, or going and getting a forward. I would love, and this is not maybe a veteran. I mean, obviously, Taylor Walker's out of contract. Did he sign? Maybe he did sign. I can't remember. And we're not getting him anyway, so that's not what I'm saying at all. Like a Taberner from the Dockers. I think that would be like a really good get, because he doesn't play heaps. Josh Tracy's really taken over there. And we've got a decent Western Australian contingent there anyway. So that'd be someone that I'd be looking at. But I'd much rather like a veteran forward or a midfielder than a defender because I think Charlie Comben is better back. But hey, I am not on the board. Okay, Bailey Scott signed. He signed on for 2 more years, which takes him up into unrestricted free agency, I believe. That was his 100th game on the weekend too, so congratulations to Bailey Scott. It's interesting. I don't blame him for only signing for 2 years. I mean, what's he going to play? Nearly just under 150 games. We're not making finals, so he's going to play 140. Oh, he might get. Oh no, so he'll just miss 150 games for the club by the time that contract is up. I don't blame him at all for spending 150 games of his career here. If we're still in that position in a couple of years, in a similar position here where we're around the bottom 4, I think he's got the full right to, assess his options. We've got to prove to these players it's worthy to stay. And Zerhas have committed, and Larkies and Simpkins and Sheasels, and that's great. But I also don't blame any player for, testing the market and seeing what's out there. If North dishes up this, you know what I mean? They have short careers and they need stuff too. So glad he stayed. Really happy he's here. I mean, I guess if you're going into work with those guys every day, it'd be hard to maybe move away when everyone has been signing, but a smart decision to take him up to unrestricted free agency. So I'm really happy he signed. Another bit of news is no contract for Hugh Greenwood. Marnie is going to be absolutely devastated at that. And so am I, sort of. Maybe not devastated, but I think he was... Sorry, guys, I'm yawning. I think he was so underutilised for our team. I mean, would he fit in the team when we got the kick mark thing and we're trying to move it quicker? Maybe not, but we're screaming out for a big body midfielder with defensive effort and ability. And I can't believe he just hasn't played more games, at least to try him. Like him in a game like that when they're breaking away out of the centre so quickly, I think he can do something. And he can be that 14 possession player. All you got to do is get a few clearances, lay some tackles in that midfield, and provide leadership. And I think he can do that. But look, Alistair Clarkson knows more about football than I do. Really think we could have utilised Hugh Greenwood more, but no surprise that he is not going to be coming back next season. Apparently got a guard of honour at the VFL as well. So well done to Hugh. Will he play any more? Don't know. Do not know. But thank you for your service. And I really wish North maybe did better by you, Hugh. So, but hey, you'll always have Marnie Cohen forever. So that is nice. I guess another bit of news would be the dropping of Will Phillips. Let's talk about this. What is going on with team selection and with Will Phillips? People were joking before team selection about Will Phillips getting dropped, especially with Sheasel going out. Dersma as well, I guess, high half forward, pushes into the midfield. I can't believe he got dropped because he hasn't done anything wrong. He's proven he can tag. There's so many players in that team that you could have tagged that took the piss yesterday, like Bont. Treloar got the most touches on the ground. They were dominating out of clearance, and if we could have held one of their guys a little bit more, I'm not saying it would have been a different story, but it's damage limitation, isn't it? And if I'm with Phillips, I'm out. I'm absolutely out. Why would I want to stick around here? We're not winning games, and he's getting dropped for no reason all the time. You look at the team, and I like Robert Hansen's Junior's game yesterday, but why is Robert Hansen playing over him? I understand that at different positions, but let's go a more common one. Let's go Liam Shields. Why is Liam Shields playing over Will Phillips? It's the end of the season. The leadership doesn't matter. We're not winning these last 2 games, and that's okay. I'll even call out my own guy, Dylan Stevens. I want Dylan Stevens to get a run. I think he can be a really good player for us. If we play our game, which I think his strengths marry to pretty well, but he's not finding the football enough. So why put him in? I understand different skill set, but you can move the magnets. It's the second last game of the season. We've won 3 games. The side doesn't need to be perfectly balanced. Let's give some people opportunities who are here for the future and try some new things. Darcy Tucker, he had a good patch of form in the middle of the year, but I don't know. He's just there. So it's very interesting. Will Phillips was rumoured to sign a 2-year deal a few weeks ago. The club hasn't posted that. It's not confirmed, even though I guess where we're hearing that is usually fairly reliable. But surely you've got to move on. Surely you've got to be like, I'm not getting enough opportunity here. I've been in the league 4 years. 4 years? 4 years. I've got to go find somewhere to actually play football. And some people have told me like, oh, who's going to pick him up? Who's going to take a shot on Will Phillips? He's not a bust. Was he 22? Shown he can tag. Did a really good tagging job on some of the better players in the league. You know, it just baffles me. It just baffles me. If I was him, I'd be slapping a trade request on Clarko's desk and saying, send me on my way. Let me free. So really disappointing from North Melbourne to drop Will Phillips. Dersma's dropping kind of makes sense, I guess. Once again, I'd probably just play him at this point just to see what happens, try him in some new roles. So I think that's a bit of a stupid one. Personally, once again, with guys like Shields, I mean, you know, I guess you couldn't have dropped Zerha or Eddie Ford or someone like that, really. So it is what it is. But, you know, I would like to see him play. I'd like to see him play, especially when the games don't matter that much. Toby Pink was the other one. Makes sense, kind of, to me. I mean, I backed Callan Dawson to come in for him. And Callan Dawson had a shocker, but I still think he'll be able to contribute more than Toby Pink will. So, anyway, that's about all for the game and for the players and how I feel. Let's swiftly move on. We'll just go and talk about a couple of the results from the round and where that leaves the ladder. So Sydney did the job against Essendon on Friday night. I've been backing Sydney basically the entire year, even when they were bad. Yes, I'm saying I'm a football genius. I did say a couple of weeks ago that if they lost, I can't remember who it was to, the Pies. If they lost to the Pies, I'm off them. They didn't. They got the job done, and I'm back on, even though I was really never off. I think the Swans are going to win the granny, which will become clear with some results later on. Gold Coast Melbourne, I mean, who cares about this? What a dead rubber of a game. Gold Coast is a rubbish franchise and the Deebs are in turmoil. So, battle of two teams that can't make finals. That was boring. Nice to see the Gold Coast lose, though. GWS beat Freo, which was a very interesting game. Freo has gone from like top 4. They were second at one point to 9th. And Carlton's ahead of Fremantle, which is absolutely outrageous. So Freo have to win next week to make finals, which is absolutely insane. Brisbane losing to Collingwood by a point. Like, Collingwood can make the 8. Collingwood can absolutely, they're one game out of the 8. If Collingwood win next week, they can be in the 8. I guess they'd have to absolutely smash a team though. So can they? So they get 52 points, which is what 8th is on right now. Oh, I don't know. I don't know if they can. They can, but they'd have to make up like 10%, which is an insane amount. So probably not. But hey, like Brisbane coming down, and I back Brisbane. I think the whole they can't win away from home thing is a little bit overdone. But hey, I guess we'll see when it comes to finals. Port won. That is gross. Really wanted Adelaide to do what they need to do. It was very funny seeing Josh Rochelle with the no teeth comments and all the Port fans. I mean, he's spot on. He's absolutely spot on. Port fans do have no teeth. But hey, Port won. It's gross, but that's fine. They'll be out in straight sets because they lock top 4 now as well. So they'll be out in straight sets though. So don't worry, guys. It's all good. St Kilda beating the Cats. What is happening? What is happening? The Cats are 4th. They would have jumped up. Yeah, I mean, or they would have been in a similar position. They probably would have been like 3rd, potentially 2nd, if they won that game. So depending on next week's results, they could drop out of the top 4 as well. Hawthorn smashing Richmond. That's a formality at this point. The West Coast Eagles. Now, this was a conflict of interest game for me. You guys know what I think about Carlton. I've been vocal on here saying Carlton is probably the most overrated team in the AFL. Not that they're rubbish, but, I mean, they have been. But, you know, this is a team that's tipped for a premiership who's barely going to make the 8, if not make it. And their 2 best players are out. I know Cripple was there. I guess not 2 best players. 2 best forwards, 2 All-Australian forwards, Coleman medalists. You know, no Kerno, no Mackay. And they go over there and absolutely belt the Eagles. So, one side, it's bad that Carlton won because now they can still make finals. But a team like Carlton with all those debutants and no forwards smashing the Eagles when we lost to them last week maybe puts into perspective where we are as a football club still. I mean, the Eagles only scored 34 points, which is absolutely insane. We can't talk. We scored like an extra goal. But yeah, look, it's absolutely outrageous. So let's have a look at the games next week, just ahead. Collingwood and Melbourne is a massive game on Friday night. Collingwood need to win to have a chance, but from what I can tell from that ladder, they need to absolutely belt the Ds to be able to make it into the 8 on percentage. I mean, Eagles Cats turns into a huge game. It's at GMHBA. But you know, if the Eagles play like that, I mean, look, the Cats should absolutely destroy the Eagles. But hey, Cats need to win that. There's pressure. I mean, Richmond Suns, yuck, who cares about that? I guess it's Dusty's. If Dusty's not playing, is he? He's just like going to stand on the ground and wave. Poor from Dustin Martin, personally. I mean, it just shows that the Richmond Football Club's culture is, you know, absolutely in the toilet. All the players wanting to leave and Dusty not even being bothered to play one more game in his career so the fans can never see him again. Very, very poor from a champion of the game, personally, if you ask me. I mean, then you got North Hawthorn. I'm going to that game. I'm going down to Tasmania that week, so pray for me. Hawks will absolutely obliterate us, though, to cement a top 8 berth. Essendon, Brisbane, I think there's a bit in this. I mean, I guess it depends because Essendon can't make the finals now. Brisbane need to win to potentially be on for top 4. It's at the Gabba, so they should get the job done. Swans, Crows, I mean,